In another violent attack perpetrated on disarmed, lawful American citizens, we must look at the real causes of this type of behavior in America. Of course, we look at the behavior of the individual who committed the act of violence, but we must also examine those responsible for making the victims unarmed and helpless. Recently, New York City, under Democratic leadership, has experienced what many would consider the most violent time in New York's history. The Democrat-run government of New York State has put New Yorkers in grave danger, and the recent New York City attack is just another example. A Manhattan maniac went on a deadly rampage in the Big Apple recently, and the New York State legislature facilitated it by disarming his victims. Of course, many media outlets were focused on the firearm used. Why wouldn't they? After decades of anti-gun propaganda convincing their writers and reporters to ignore the real causes of violence in an attempt at implementing more gun laws. Why is the gun even part of the conversation? Murder cases in the past would be focused on the killer, the victims, and the motive. Today, the media seems fixated on the components of the firearm, which was never an issue in the past. But because the anti-gun political left has made firearms such an issue, now the focus is primarily on the weapon used. Well, as long as it's a gun. But let's talk about the gun laws that were in place. The New York State SAFE Act banned the possession of this type of rifle. Kathy Hochul's sensitive location law banned the carrying of firearms in the city of New York. The New York State firearm permit limitations disqualified this Las Vegas resident from carrying in the state of New York, and the magazine capacity limit banned the number of rounds the killer had. Did the New York gun laws have any effect on the killer? Of course not. Did those laws deter the killer in any way? No. As a matter of fact, he made no attempt to even conceal the rifle while walking through the city. He blatantly defied the state's gun laws, as we know killers do. How about the victims? Did the New York State gun laws have any effect on the victims? Well, it sure did. They were sitting ducks. They were restricted from self-defense. And not only were they restricted from carrying a gun in the building, New York State mandated that they have a legal duty to retreat. After watching this type of violence occur for years in New York State, Kathy Hochul defiantly signed the Concealed Carry Improvement Act into law 8 days after her defeat in the Bruen case in 2022. If this isn't enough to tell you that she and her fellow Democrats are committed to putting lawful American citizens in danger, I don't know what is. The success New York gun owners had in the Bruen case was a chance for good people to finally be able to protect their lives and the lives of the ones they love. Kathy Hochul and her New York State legislature understood that, and they didn't want it. Don't forget, this is the woman who let 191 criminals out of Rikers Island as soon as she was appointed governor. Tell me she wants to keep good people safe. And she had the unconstitutional Concealed Carry Improvement Act ready to go as soon as the Supreme Court handed New York gun owners a 6-3 majority victory in Bruen. So what did Kathy Hochul and her New York State gun laws accomplish? Well, they accomplished the very much intended result of making good people vulnerable and giving violent criminals the advantage. Because obviously, anyone who is willing to kill in cold blood will pay no attention to magazine capacity restriction or any other gun law for that matter. Even the Supreme Court has condemned Kathy Hochul and the New York State legislature for implementing their unconstitutional gun laws. Our Supreme Court justices understand why our founding fathers wanted the people to have guns. Hochul and Governor Cuomo before her have completely ignored the will of the people in their pursuit of creating an unarmed and helpless New York State citizenry. And the New York State legislature understands exactly what they're doing because they've seen the results time and time again. Restrictive gun laws put good people at risk and perpetuate this type of heinous violent activity. So the question is, do they really want to stop violent crime? How much longer will we allow these monsters to continue putting American citizens at risk? How much longer will we tolerate the dangerous gun laws that are being put in place by people like Kathy Hochul? The gun restrictions Kathy Hochul signed into law in New York State are the cause of the violence we just experienced in New York City. And the irony of it all is the fact that she and other anti-gun, anti-freedom, anti-self-defense Democrats would go to the media and call for more of the same unconstitutional and dangerous laws that cause loss of life. The defiant behavior of these gun-grabbing politicians we've recently experienced is absolutely astonishing, but more astonishing is that we, the people, continue to allow it. Not only do New York Democrats perpetuate violence in the state of New York and New York City, they use the violence and spin it in the media to gain support for more of the same deadly gun restrictions. And to those who want to make the argument that the New York City victims accepted their own unarmed helplessness and believed it was the best condition to be in, of course they would. How do you disarm yourself and put your life at risk if not by first convincing yourself that it's the best thing to do? The mental conditioning of the folks who believe that their own helpless condition is a good thing must first be convinced of it, and the media is complicit in the facilitation of that brainwashing. If the victims in the violent New York City attack were legally able to defend themselves with firearms, and they weren't under the mind melting that the anti-gun media has perpetuated upon them, this attack likely would have never happened, and grown men would not have been forced to resort to barricading themselves in an office and cowering in fear for their lives. Don't forget, when the people of Venezuela were disarmed, they were forced to defend themselves by throwing rocks. New York Democrats are creating that same human condition, but they've got the propaganda and the brainwashing strategies to convince those who can't think for themselves to go along with it. So let me ask you a question. Who are the real bad guys here? The violent criminals who are willing to take lives, or the politicians who help them? Thanks for watching Bullet Points. I'm Dan Wass for Gun Owners Foundation. You can find more Second Amendment content and updates at gunowners.com.